This situation keeps getting crazier as we have a major update surrounding Scott Laughton and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as the trade deadline inches closer and closer, more and more reports are starting to come out revealing some interesting details surrounding Brad Treliving's plan. We also have an update surrounding Austin Matthews regarding the Four Nations Cup. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're part of the 70% or so who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. And obviously the Four Nations Cup is on the go right now. It's coming to a close here soon, but there is a lot to go over today. Obviously Team Canada plays today in a big game, but we have some updates surrounding Scott Laughton and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now obviously Scott Laughton has been the player that the Leafs have been linked to the most at this trade deadline, and obviously his price has been astronomically high, especially according to multiple reports here. But we have a couple updates surrounding not only what the Leafs are willing to give up, but a bit of insight into Brad Treliving's trade plan. So I want to drop this first here. So Bleacher Report has recently published an article outlining each team's ideal trade target at the approaching NHL trade deadline. They match the Leafs of Flyers forward and Toronto-born Scott Laughton. Center depth remains an issue for the Maple Leafs with Austin Matthews and John Tavares locked into the top two lines. They need a reliable third center. So yet again, another report, another article speculating that the Leafs and Scott Laughton are not only going to make a trade, but that they are a perfect fit for each other. A couple other things to go over, but I want to get your thoughts on this again. We've been talking about a lot of different targets, but once again, a different reporter and analyst revealing that the Leafs are in on Scott Laughton.
Well, it makes all the sense in the world on paper for Scott Laughton to become a Toronto Maple Leaf, right? But the only thing that I think is throwing Leafs fans off and myself off right now is the asking price. It's a first round pick or a prospect of equal value. So you're looking at Easton Cowan or Fraser Minten. And by all accounts, it's Fraser Minten, which I think, personally, I know a lot of people are going to have a field day with this in the comments, but I would rather trade Easton Cowan at this point in both of their developments and what I've seen from both of them, and what Fraser Minten can bring to your lineup long term with Austin Matthews there. And if you get a second line center, I think Fraser Minten can be a great third line center, like playoffs and everything, just his play style. So I would be, more reluctant to trade him. So I think it's just the asking price at this point that's throwing everybody off. And if he comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's not going to be a second line center. He's not going to play over John Tavares. He's going to be a third line center. So do you want to trade a first round pick for a third line center? We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks, right? Like maybe they go out and get a second line center, spend that first round pick, which would be a first round pick next year because you don't have yours this year in 2025. So maybe you go out and spend that first round pick on somebody who will make a difference long term, like Dylan Cousins, who, only makes $7 million. And if he does reach his potential on a good team, that looks like a pretty good contract all of a sudden. So I'm more in love with that idea than going out and getting a guy for your third line this year. But we do have to keep in mind too, Leafs are in a cup window, right? You do have John Tavares signed this year. They only have so much cap room and deadline cap room this year. Scott Laughton would make a bit of a difference compared to what they have right now with Pontus Holmberg or Max Domi at 3C. So that would make a difference. And his salary cap hit isn't that bad, especially going into next year. He's not a rental. You would have him for next year. So a couple of things to consider, but man, that first round pick or a prospect of equal value would be steep.
Yeah, it always is. I think it's going to be hard to give up any one of Fraser Minten or Easton Cowan for a guy of Scott Laughton's caliber, even though he is a very good player. You think about in years past, that would get you a lot more than it is supposedly at this trade deadline. Here's some more things here surrounding it. GM Brad Treliving is reportedly interested in Laughton. Daily Faceoff's Anthony DeMarco noted Leafs are among several teams eyeing the 30-year-old two-way forward who carries a $3 million cap hit. Now again, at least with this player, we've been discussing a couple rentals. He at least has control in one more year. He is 30, so he's in the middle of his prime. The Flyers in sell mode after trading Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee are seeking a strong return, likely a first-round pick. The Leafs don't have one in 2025, but could consider moving their 2026 first for Laughton. So that's another report now. Highlighting again, the Leafs are in a buy now. I mean, Flyers are in sell mode. The Leafs are in buy mode, especially given the fact that their cup window is now over the next few years. But a first-round pick for a guy like Scott Laughton's always going to be very, very, very difficult to justify. And we've been covering it a lot here. A $3 million cap hit isn't bad. And his depth chart currently is the first line center on the Flyers. But you can put him on the Leafs team. He's under contract till he's age 32. You can make it work. However, it's very, very interesting to see so many. It almost seems like everybody, including the Leafs fans, reporters from, in this case, Bleacher Report, a bunch of different other teams, are all linking, not only linking, saying that the Leafs make by far the most sense for Scott Laughton. Now, if you're going to go after Scott Laughton and you're going to move a first-round pick, you'd have to assume that a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen is going to be included. Because if you're the Leafs, you'd almost rather give up the first-round pick and assets and the young players for a guy like Dylan Cousins rather than a player of Scott Laughton's caliber alone.
Yeah, if you're going to give up the first round pick in the deal like this for Scott Laughton, the package has to be bigger. The trade would have to include more pieces, for me at least, right? And I wonder if there's a world where, and I don't know if the Leafs are even interested in this, but they can get Scott Laughton for like a second round pick and maybe another prospect, like somebody that isn't on the top tier kind of thing, like a second round pick and another prospect. Package those two together, you get Scott Laughton instead of just like a first round pick or something like that, right? So I wonder if they're looking at that or trying for that. I'm sure that Brad Living is, and the Flyers are pretty, set like we need a first round pick. The other thing is there's a lot of other teams included in these talks, like the Winnipeg Jets. There's a couple other teams too that do have first round picks this year. And I think the Flyers want a first round pick from this year. So that could be another thing thrown into the situation as well. And like, I was just mentioning, Rasmus Ristolainen could be part of this deal too with retained salary. You can make it a bigger deal that would work for your salary cap and obviously a bunch of assets going the other way, but it would make your team better if you got a couple more assets, right? They do need a depth defenseman too. So if they were to make that in one trade, it would be better. But it is very interesting heading into the deadline. Prices are very high this year. I'm actually quite surprised because, the Leafs got Ryan O'Reilly at, I think, like 31 or 32 years old for two guys that weren't even prospects and like a second round pick or something. I can't remember the exact deal a couple of years ago, but the asking price this year is astronomical compared to that. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams do. If some teams back down as we get closer to the deadline, but with a bunch of teams interested in Scott Laughton, it makes a lot of sense for the Leafs. I'm just not sure at this point they're going to pull the trigger on that trade specifically.
Yeah, and again, if they do give up a first-round pick, Rasmus Ristolainen, we know they need a defenseman. He's also under contract, so you'd be getting two guys who are under contract past this year, which would definitely make it easier for, I'm sure, the front office to somewhat giving up one of your top prospects. And obviously, you wouldn't just get Rasmus and Scott Laughton for one first-round pick or one player. You'd have to make the salaries work, and of course, you would probably have to give up a little bit more as well, considering Scott Laughton on his own is worth, in theory, what the Flyers believe is a first-round pick. So let us know down below your thoughts are on that, and also let us know where you think he would slide, because at the moment, with Pontus Holmberg in at third-line center, it's a little bit rough at times, knowing that upgrade is just around the corner, hopefully. One quick note before we wrap up. You can see this here surrounding Austin Matthews and the mentality and mindset from the Team Canada game. We haven't done anything yet. It's only 2 games, 2 big wins. We've got a lot of work to do. It was electric, the Canada game. It was probably one of the best atmospheres I've been a part of. It feels a lot better when you come out with the win. We're here to compete. The bottom line is we're here to win. I hope the NHL never goes back from this. They need to stick with Four Nations Cup. Maybe have an All-Star game every like 4 years or something. But any quick final thoughts on this before we wrap up? Team Canada plays here shortly, so hopefully we can get a U.S. versus Canada final in the Four Nations Cup.
Yeah, and that can happen this afternoon. So we'll see how the games shake out this afternoon. There's some interesting lineup decisions for Team USA already, with Chris Kreider coming in and Charlie McAvoy sitting. But could be interesting final there, Canada USA, to see them play again. And obviously Austin Matthews, like I've been saying, Mitch Marner. I'm wondering what they're going to take back from this tournament. I like that quote from Austin Matthews. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do against Sweden tonight. And yeah, like you said, never go back to the All-Star game. This is so much better, and they should probably make it like an 8 Nations Cup or something in the future.
Yeah, Bennington is in net as well for all you guys out there. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.
Digest your daily dose of gold. Stories of the bold, where legends are told. From first pop drop to the season's fall. Tune in and watch the drama